Oh, what is up, everybody? Today, we are stepping into the world of Framer in order to design this, what you see right here. I know it's a rather interesting looking design. There's not a ton here in terms of the full layout. It's mainly just a hero section, but you're going to learn a lot because I'm going to describe exactly how we structure the layout and do all these fancy effects within Framer. Now, this little alien thing that you see in the background that's reacting to the mouse, that's in Unicorn Studio. That's a different piece of software, but as a bonus, I'm gonna show you how to integrate that at the end. So another important thing is if you're really interested in learning Framer after taking a look at this video and you really wanna get in depth, definitely check out my From Figma to Framer course at DesignCourse.com. There's a coupon code here in the description. I'll stop spamming. Let's get started. All right, here is the layout, and this is in Figma. I already designed it. We're not going to cover the design process. Of course, if you're interested in that, check out the UI UX design course at DesignCourse.com and plug. But nonetheless, this is basically what we're trying to recreate here in Framer, and we're going to take this section by section. So for instance, this is a nav bar, very simple one. I made it simplified on purpose. I didn't want to have to deal with extra links and showing that whole process. This is more of like a quick crash course. So it's just two elements, a logo and a hamburger. That's a nav bar. And then we have an intersection right here with three cards. So a 3-column stack we'll define in this area. And then we have this type right here. So these three elements are kind of like 1, 2, 3 in terms of rows for our hero section. And of course, this image here, we're going to be dealing just with a yellow background. And then at the end as a bonus, I'll show you how to create that cool effect. Anyhow, then down here, just have some trust logos. And so we'll have to get these assets into Framer, which is super easy. And I'll show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and switch over to Framer. Okay, so create a new project. You'll be presented with this screen right here, assuming not too much has changed depending on when you're watching this video. And the first thing I'll do is let's just define the background color, right? I mean, kind of makes sense to start there. So let's switch back and we're gonna grab this color code. Typically I work a lot faster if I have two monitors where I have like Figma on the other side, Framer on the other side. I do actually have 3 monitors over there, but the other one, it's not even turned on. But anyway, so we got that color code, switch back here and paste that bad boy in, and now we're ready to rock. So the first thing we're going to define here is the actual navbar section. Now, one thing to really familiarize yourself with, if I can talk, is the concept of layouts. All right, so this is here as a frame, and a lot of containers in this UI design world of Framer, they're based on what are called frames. And then if you have two elements that are, if you create a layout, if you add a layout to that frame, which means clicking this little button right here, then you can, any elements inside of it will adhere to the settings displayed right here. So this is, you can think of this like as the parent container and the structure of the elements that are inside of it. So we will leave this as a layout. For now, the height eventually will be fit content, but we have no content inside of it yet, so we can't do that. So we'll leave it at a fixed height for now. And inside, we want to create, we're going to come up here to layout, and you see where it says columns? Remember I mentioned we have 2 columns, the logo and then the hamburger menu icon? All right, that's what we want. So if I just left click and drag, notice how it automatically kind of adheres, it's snapped into place. That's because if we go to layers, you can see we have our desktop, which is the overall container, the overall frame, and then we have that stack inside of it. Notice it's called stack. We're going to call it something better. How about navbar? Just double click and then change it, hit enter. All right. So inside of here, we have 2 frames. So think of frames as containers, like I said, and frames can be converted into layouts if you click this layout plus button over here. Sometimes you may not always want to do that. It depends. So you'll see. We don't want a background, so by default they add a background to the inner elements of a stack. So now we have our 2-column approach right here, and we want the logo. So how do we get the logo? Well, the logo was just a type-based logo, so it's just a piece of type. And if I go back to Figma, one of the cool things about Figma is in Framer is they have a plugin. So if we take this piece of type, right click, go to plugins. Now you may not see it, but it's called Figma to HTML with Framer. If you never used it, it won't show up in this area. You just want to go to manage plugins and then type in Figma to HTML with Framer and then just get it. It's free. All right, so I'm going to click on it. And guess what? All it says is copied one layer, paste in Framer. Ta-da. All right, so how do we do that? With our frame selected where we want it to reside, Control V. That freaking easy. All righty. So remember, this frame right here is not a layout, see? There's nothing under the layout section. It's parent container. We'll call this left call. All right. So as soon as we change that to a layout, watch what happens. It sticks it in the center. So the way we fix that is we could specify start. But see, you can experiment. You can put end. So inside of its container, however that is structured, you can control where it resides, not just horizontally, but vertically as well by clicking these buttons. All right, so that's good right there. Now, another thing that we should concern ourselves with is, does the size of this column have to be this wide? Does it have to be 50-50? Well, I would say no. And over here, you can see where it says size, 1 FR. 1 Frenchie. I'm just kidding. It's not Frenchie. It's 1 fractional unit, I believe. It's been a while. For the width, we could choose fit content. Now the row, or the column rather, is only as big as it needs to be. All right. So now what about the hamburger menu icon? So let's go over to Figma. Come over here. What's up, dude? Woo, woo, woo. Is that annoying? All right, we take this, right click, go to plugins, Figma to HTML with Framer. Now, pasty. Now go back to frame. We'll change this to right call and click layout. Then we go over here to this, to the right call still, and we go end. Sweet. And then we take, let's see, our right call and change the width to fit content. Oh no, what the hell happened? Don't worry. You have a couple options here. First, I'm going to show you the ill-advised option. You don't want to do this. You see where I'm taking that little hander and it's adjusting the gap property in the property inspector on the right side. You don't want to do this because that's going to hard code a gap in between. Instead, make sure you Control Z, undo that. First, instead what you want to do is change the distribution to space between. These are CSS properties, by the way, in values. So when you do that, sweet. Now if you hit play, you could drag the size of this browser in and out, but it's still not gonna work as you think. Watch. Notice how the logo it's not adapting to the size, right? It's not constrained anywhere. So to fix that, we click on our navbar element and look under size. We see width. It's 10,066 pixels fixed. We don't want that. We want this to be a fluid that goes in and out with the size of your device or your computer, browser, whatever. So now we're just going to choose fill. Now it's pushing it to the very edge, and there's no white space on the left and right, and that looks like garbage because white space is a very fundamental concept of UI UX design. So what we need to do, if we want to define some of that white space, well, we could say relative, maybe 90%. Oh, sweet. Look at that. Now, if we hit play and we drag this out, notice how it kind of extends the white space, and that's because it's based on percentage value. So watch how small this will get in the amount of white space, which is typically around what you want anyways on a mobile phone like this. So this would work just fine, and just make sure any other containing elements that are inside of here are also 90%. And then you can also add what's called a max width. So check this out. Let's say you don't necessarily want your design to expand all the way out to like a browser that's maximized at 4K, right? So you could put in a max width right here by clicking this area and putting max width. And then you could put fixed at, let's say, 1600 pixels. Actually, that may not be able to demonstrate that very well. I'll just put 1000. So watch this, hit play. It's gonna adapt all the way until, bam, 1000 pixels and it stops. All right, I want mine to be beefy. So we're gonna say like 1500 pixels. Okay, so that's all we're gonna cover there. Although, if you notice, there's a black outline around there. I did not design for that. It's not in here. So we have to fix that. To fix that, because this is an asset, we're gonna double click into it. And you can see you may have to do it twice, a couple times. You'll see that there's a path down here. Hit delete and go back. And guess what? It's gone. Okay, awesome. All right, what's next up? Let's go back to Figma. And now we have this section, this card section. This is gonna be fun because you're gonna learn about components here. These are repeating elements, right? Everything's the same except this particular card or this column has a get button, a call to action, a button of some sort. And I'll show you how to make a dynamic component with a component variant that could specify, we could toggle on whether or not we want each of these cards to have a button, right? So let's get to it. So the first thing we'll do is go back into our framer. And just for now, I'm gonna take the nav bar, stack, hit Control D. So now we have two of them sitting on top of each other. Now we're gonna delete the inner and the inner column and the other one. So what we'll do is under layout, we're gonna put in 3 columns. So we take the columns, left click. We'll make sure that this stack here, wait 1 second. Yeah, I think we got slipped outside of the viewport somehow. Here, let's try that again. We'll go back to layout, columns. There we go. Much better. What the hell? So now I'm gonna take the stack, and we wanna make sure the stack is not fixed with, we wanna make that a fill all the way out, and we could fill, just for now, the height as well. Now, we want 3 of these suckers, right? So we could take one of the frames, hit Control D to duplicate, and we're gonna focus on, here, let's just take these and get rid of the backgrounds by selecting them. Alrighty. All right. So next up, if I take our nav bar, make it a little bit larger, we're going to go ahead and specify in this first frame, not a text, sorry about that. With it selected, we want to specify, if we go back to Figma, you'll see we have essentially 3 elements, or 4 really if you count the button. This element, this element, this element, and this element, okay, so the button. So we have 4 rows essentially occurring. So what we'll do is under layout, or let me show you a different way. I might as well just do this. It makes a lot more sense. So if I go back to Figma, we'll just copy all 4 of those and then, oh no. Yeah, oops, don't read that. Okay, that's me just talking ridiculously. All right, ignore that. We're gonna we're gonna go ahead and copy, go to plugins and our framer plugin. We're getting a little bit ridiculous in here. Control V, we're gonna paste that sucker in. Look at that, but we got some work to do. Trust me, it's not that simple. You can't just leave it like this. So we have, let's see what happened here exactly, because we got a frame with a button. We got a frame here. Okay. So the first thing it did is it put in this frame 2 button. I'm gonna put that there down at the bottom. We also have a rectangle. So we're gonna call this header. And then we're gonna adjust this so that the width, and by the way, this is inside our frame, which is not a layout. Let's click layout. Now, as you can see, it's kind of screwed up after we do that, no big deal. So now what we need to determine is, okay, we need to get that black line to the top. So to do that, make sure we come up here, hit start. That's the first part of the puzzle. Now notice our header had become a fill of 1 fractional unit, which is perfect because that means it's going to stay the size of this inner area. And then we also want to take the stack and left align everything. See how close it's getting? Aha, very exciting stuff over here. So then we have this area. The type is pretty good. I'm going to scale down the size of the font just a bit here. Now notice it's already known, it knew to add a layout for it because it detects your auto layouts in Figma when you paste it in. Isn't that cool? All right, yes it is. So now we'll put that in like right there. And now, let's see. Let's just see what this looks like. Kind of. Let's take the. Yeah, I think that's good for now. Yeah, we'll reduce the line height just a bit. Okay. So now what we want to do is I do want to take this button where it says Frame 2. We'll rename the CTA, which is a common acronym in this industry for call to action. A button is a call to action. A scroll icon is a call to action. You know, filling out a form is a call to action, all that stuff. So we're going to right click and choose Create Component right at the top. And we'll name it CTA, Create. And here is the component view. Very powerful. A component just allows you to define reusable and configurable elements. And it's not just for buttons. It's for cards as well, as you will soon see. You can nest them into each other. Okay, so let's just do a hover version of what happens when somebody takes their cursor and hovers over it. One common pattern that makes it very quick and easy is just to invert your colors. So for instance, the background, if we take our color here, we'll grab this yellow, bam, and then we'll grab the type, and we'll grab that background color, which I think is just black. Yeah. Simple, but that's not the last thing we want to do. I do want to wrap the button in a 1 pixel black border. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But to do that, we select Variant 1 Hover, and we're going to change up here where it says Border to black. So we're adding a black border of 1 pixel solid all around. Okay, so now if we go back, we hit play. Look at that. Oopsie. Look at that. Very exciting stuff. So that is the benefit of having a component, because if this button were in multiple areas, you want to make a change, you'd have to do with each one individually. It'd be a pain in the butt. So anyhow, let's make sure everything is of correct importance here with the type. So first, this description. Ignore what it says, all right? But the description is going to be, we want to look at the width and height. So first off, yes, it's a fill of 1 fractional unit, meaning it's going to take the entire space up of its container, its layout container. You can put fractional, like 0.5 if you want to only take half, right? Now, the height, do we want it to be fixed of that type layer? So in that case, we don't. We want it to fit the content. All right, so it fits the 3 lines of type that exist there. All right, and then same thing here. It just says fit. This is fill to 8 pixels height. I might make that a little bit thinner, like to 4. All right, and then do I like the spacing? Well, we can adjust this stuff. That's actually fine. Here's one common thing that might trip people up. Let's say, for instance, we want like a smaller amount of, like a less amount of spacing, like say between these 3 elements at the top and the button. Maybe we want more on the button. One way to do that is you have to add these 3. Oops, just these 3 right here. Right click and choose Add Frame. All right. Now you should put Add Stack, but you click plus on the layout over there afterwards, and then hit left. All right, and then hit Start. Okay, so now we have control of defining the white space from these 3 elements here. By the way, make sure that new stack container is fit content. There we go, so that this happens. All right, but now we can take the stack outside of it, and then we can adjust more white space in that direction. Isn't that cool? You damn right it's cool. Okay, now, now that we have a card, we have 2 more of those to place, and everything's the same about them. Obviously outside of unique typography, the sentence structure and all that. but except for 2 of them don't have a button. So we want to turn this stack, which we'll call card, into a component. Right click, create component, hit create, and now we're ready to rock. So what we'll do is click variant, and under variant, we will take get art, the button, right click, and just choose hide. So now we have variant 1 and 2. We could double click over here and change this to say with no CTA, and then variant 1 will say with CTA. All right, now we also want the ability to be able to change the type on these. So I'll show you how that works in a second. So if I just copy that and then paste it, let's get rid of one of these. We can see now we have 2 instances, but how do you change the text? It just takes you right back to the component level. Well, the way you do that, if we double click over here, is the first piece of type. Let's click it, come down here where it says anything that has the little plus button, you can add a variable. So we're going to click plus for the content because we want to be able to change the content for each card. Create variable, plain text, and we're going to change that to, we're just going to leave it at title. Now we can go ahead and click out. Alrighty, and click on that one, and I keep on reading it and cracking up. I'm immature. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. So click plus on content, plain text, DESC for description, be done with it. There we go. Now, if you come over here with one of them selected, so this one says Digital Renaissance, maybe Epic AI Stories. I have no clue. That just came to the top of my head. Oh, we can see there's an issue though. See how this text is getting cut off? So if that happens, which it will, things like that very similar will happen all the time. You click on, see how it's going outside? Well, that's because we need to make sure that this is set to fill. All right, and then I would probably take the size of the type and scale it down just a bit to make room for it, enough size. There's other things you can do with type, like for instance, making it fit, which we'll get into a little bit with the main headline, but for now that's pretty solid right there. So that's 25. We come over here and this will update as well. Notice size 25. So your variations change, you change it here in the master instance, it'll change to your variations as well. So now if we go back, we don't have that problem. And now, how do we toggle that variant? Remember where it says, here's where it says variant. We can change this to with no CTA. Look at that. Copy this one, just delete that one, and then copy that one. All right, so now this is what it looks like. Now, if we wanted to increase the white space between it, we select the parent stack or the container and just increase that. All right, so notice how the text is kind of like clipping off here to the side. Well, if we click onto that, you want to make sure that when we take the stack, it's not fixed. We just want that to be fill. Now it's fixing that. Now you can see we have 4 lines of text, ridiculous text, but that's okay. All right, so now we have this parent container. We want to make sure that the height is set, or the nav bar rather, is set to fit content. Now it's going to fit here. Now why is there space underneath it? Well, let's take a look at the stack. And there's usually always a reason. Now the stack has a height that's fixed, that's why, so fit content. All right, and let's take a look at these cards. Notice they also have a height that's fixed. So we take all 3 and we do fit content. All right, I think it's working, all right, but let's look here. It still seems like, why is there space underneath that one? So let's take a look at this. This height, okay. Let's take both of these. Fit content. Oh, sorry, that was width. So this is fit content. There we go. Okay, now you might be wondering, why is this one up high and these other ones are like that? All right, so that would be because if we go back to our view here, we need to make sure, I I know exactly why. The reason that's happening is because we have it fit content and this doesn't exist over here because we toggled that version off. So if we take a look at our stack, we want to make sure that this is up high. There we go. All right. Whew. Now let's hit play and make sure everything's looking solid. Of course, at a certain point, we'll create a breakpoint, but that's how yours should be responding right now. Okay, let's go back. Now let's go ahead and do the next section, which is, let's change that from navbar to hero. Oopsie. We'll call it hero. Then we'll duplicate that. Just get rid of all the stuff on the inside, the stack included. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and add. This time, I think all we can get away with just going back to Figma and grabbing these pieces of type right here, those two, right click. We're gonna go to our plugins, Figma plugin, go back here, and then just paste those bad boys in. Now, under hero, again, we'll just rename this to headline. Headline, not headlie. There we go. And then we wanna change this to a column that begins on the aligned start position. Okay, so we're making some progress. Let's select this overall desktop here. Let's get some space between these elements. Now, notice on our design that we have, this element here, this column, which actually might end up being up a little bit higher like this. So these two rows are aligned up high with a greater degree between the headline section that we just created. So we want to make sure that the headline section is bound to the bottom, no matter how high this yellow portion is. All right, so what we'll do is we take our hero section and our navbar section, and we right click and choose add stack. All right, so unfortunately when we do that, we lose the white space that we defined because the stack now says fill at 1 fractional unit. We could just go back to relative and put 90%, like that. Okay, so now that we did that, we have independent control from the white space of those two sections. And then what we can do finally is add the headline as well. These two elements, this should just be like upper hero, there we go. Take both of those and right click, add a stack. I keep on making more work. How about we just put 0.9 FR, there we go. That'll work. All right, so now we have this situation where we can control the white space, but we don't want to control this particular white space. So what we want to do is we're going to take the stack and adjust this to space between. All right, now why is it not working like that? We're going to specify for the height a viewport of 100 viewport height. All right, so what that means if I hit play is the size of the visible area within the browser or your your mobile phone browser or tablet, whatever. Whatever that size is, that height is that parent container will fill 100% of that viewport height. All right, that's all that means. So that's why no matter how tall this becomes, like for instance, if I adjust this to like 1500 pixels, it's still not going to go beyond 100 viewport height. Now, if I change this, the stack right here, and we change that to maybe, let's say, 140, notice how it's going to show up 140 right down there. But why does it make sense to do that? We're going to do 100 viewport height right there. Okay. So now that we have this main part done, let's get the section underneath it. All right, so underneath it, if we go back to our Figma, you'll see it breaks outside of the container. You can see the columns established for the logo, the cards, and the headline section. This breaks outside of it. So what that means is we cannot continue on within this same stack right here. All right, so I'll just put top container here. What I'll do is duplicate it and then just delete everything inside of it. All right, so top container, that specified 100 viewport height. Just for that little trust hero section, we can make that a fixed height. So instead of, and we don't want it to be based on view, we'll just do fixed, and we'll adjust it by moving this up, maybe to around here. We also want 1 FR, 1 fractional unit, to span all the way across, and then give it a background of black. Now we're getting somewhere. Now I do know, okay, so it already does have a layout. We're just gonna do row and just hit start, or center rather. And then what we're gonna do inside of here is, you know, those are meant to be moving across the screen, each one of those logos essentially. So what we wanna do is import what's called a ticker. So we're gonna hit search up after clicking insert and type in ticker. Ticker, just grab it right there. Alrighty. So now for the width, you know, how wide do we want this thing to be? We could do fill, just make it like infinitely long. That's fine. And then the height, we're just going to leave it fixed for now, and we could just make it a little bit smaller like that. All right, so now notice how it says connect to content, add layers or components to infinitely loop on your page. So here's how easy this is. We go back to Figma. We grab all of the logos. All right. So I'm going to double click into that one, hold shift, left click. I'm holding shift. And now I can go ahead and right click. Sorry, I have like a burp trying to come up. And then we're going to choose the Framer plugin. So now I'm going to go up here, paste those bad boys in, and then move them up here out of the way. So now what we'll do is we're going to click on this. See the little arrows right there, or icons? We're going to drag them. Oh no, they're not connecting. What now? Well, all we have to do is just select these and right click, create component, or just hit Control-Alt-K. Actually, I'm sorry. Don't do that. Back up. Control-Z. Right click, and we could just do add frame. So now, if we add a frame around it, we can now connect it. And notice how it's showing up over there. Looking all sussy. So now, let's go ahead and do the same thing. So, right click, add frame, Control Enter. So that's the fastest way. Control Enter, and Control Enter. So now, take those, connect them up, keep on doing it. And of course, they look like garbage the way they're placed on there initially. But we could fix that. All right. So now what we do, there is settings in the property inspector under ticker. I keep on thinking of like Tigger. All right, well, anyway. So what we'll do is we're going to give these a gap of all the way across, just like that. And I actually, you know, I think they could be a little bit smaller in size, each logo. And if we wanted to do that, we would just basically take all of these. I'm not even sure if I could take all at the same time. Yeah, I can. Very nice. So now they're not a little bit smaller. I like that look better. For this, by the way, let's just make this all the way. And then what we'll do is adjust this to start and top. There we go. Okay. So watch this. Let's hit play. And it will infinitely loop, not just the 5. Okay. So now I want to slow that down. So speed, you know, maybe we'll do like 50%. You could change the direction, the alignment, the gap between them, the padding, hover, all this cool stuff. So like if I do, actually I've never even tried hover. Yeah, well, it's not doing shit if I hover. No big deal. Anyhow, that's very cool. So now if we look at this, let's see how it behaves responsively. Down here where it says artificial intelligence, that's garbage. This is not what you want. Over here, this is, I'm sure, fine. Yes, it is. So we have to fix that. Now, at this point is where I'm going to show you a very cool little technique. Okay, so for artificial intelligence, I'm going to right-click and choose Add Frame. And what the frame will allow me to do is we can adjust the width of the frame itself. And you'll see what I mean here in a second. We're going to change this to relative, and we'll leave it at 85%. Then we take the type inside of it, and we go down here under the text section where it says, under size, fit. Now, it doesn't look like anything changed. Notice it says 100%. That means fill 100% of its parent container, which happens to be the frame that we just added. So watch this now. If I drag this in, we get truly responsive type. Now, of course, we want to fix that clipping issue, which we will, but check that out. Isn't that sweet? So we could do the same thing underneath here as well. So again, we're going to right click, add frame. With the frame selected, we'll go ahead and specify a fill, or no, sorry, a relative. So here we're at 36. I might want to increase that a little bit. But then as soon as we grab the type inside of it, we could change this to fit. Okay, so now we can adjust the frame above it, the percentage value, however we wish. Now if we hit play, all right, that's cool. Now if we get too small, we're not gonna be able to read this type. It might be very difficult. So what you can do to combat things from getting too small, like type, is to come up here where it says min-max under size, and do a height, a minimum width. Think, Gary, think. So what we want to do is minimum width. We kind of have to do a little bit of a guesstimate here. I'm going to say 400 pixels. So if we hit play and we squeeze this in, notice how it stopped right at 400 pixels. It essentially stops, changing. Now we're getting clipping issues because we pasted this in, and we get weird things that occur here. Now first, before I even talk about that, the headline itself is a layout. Okay, so it is, all right. All right, so they actually are structured how I would want them. What we wanna do is we could take the headline and we can change the overflow to visible. That might be one thing that helps us. But the width on this element, this frame, we see is 47, and then we have this element which is set at 100% fit. So why is it doing that? Oh, it's doing that. So it's getting smaller. All right, so I understand what's happening now. It's essentially because we've taken the type, let's see here. Notice we put minimum width at 400, but this parent container doesn't have a minimum width. So we should add it there instead. So we'll select the frame and we're gonna give this a minimum width of, let's say for instance, 350. All right, so let's hit play, scale it down, and notice how it's now stopped from scaling any further. All right, now there's a few other things that we need to adjust. So space between, let's just put center. Let's see that makes things behave. Or we can do start. All right, and let's see here. The height of this, we have a fit. Yep, that's what we want for fit content. And the height of this needs to fit content, and the height of this, okay, is fit content, so that works. Just want to make sure this is all set up in a manner that makes sense. Probably want to make this scale smaller. So again, we'll take the frame around it, and we could adjust this to like 300. See, it's a very, it's a process that takes quite a bit of time to get everything kind of nailed out how you want it. Now, here's the thing. Probably right around here, I would certainly change and add a breakpoint in this area. But first, before we do that, actually, no, let's get that done. Then we'll do the cool unicorn stuff afterwards. So now that we have that, the next thing we want to do is the breakpoints. So we click breakpoint right there and just choose, we'll choose tablet right here. All right. Let's bring it in like around here. And then we're going to go ahead and adjust this element and change that from columns to, or rows to vertical, essentially. So these are rows, 3 rows now. And look how it just works. It's like, sweet, man. All right. So down here, if we want to make any other changes, we can do that as well to any of this content. And it will stay specific to this particular artboard or this tablet size and down, like to smaller sizes, but not up. So if I make a change over here, it will change to this and any other of the breakpoint based layouts. Okay, hopefully you understand that. Now, with that said, I think we're pretty happy with this. So if I hit play, we can simulate what it looks like in a browser and notice how it changes right here like this. Now, there is an issue with white space right here. That looks like garbage, right? So what we could do, and that's happening because we have this set at 100 viewport height. So what we could do instead is change this to start rather, and then just define white space like that. So if I hit plus, oh no, looks like we got some clipping down here. So let's see what we have here. We have our tablet, we have our top container, which has a width of 0.9 and a height of 100 viewport height. So that's going to be the issue. We want to change this to fit content. There we go. Now it's working as intended, and we have better white space for those elements. Awesome. Okay, so now what we want to do is focus on the animation. Now the animation is the funnest part of all this. That's where we get to make it come alive, essentially. So the first thing I guess we'll animate in is maybe just this section right here. And inside a navbar, we have a left column and a right column. So the element that we're going to animate in is navbar itself, as selected right here. If we do that, we'll see over here, we have a section called effects. Click plus and we'll see all these different effects. We're just going to use appear, all right? So as soon as this appears, which is going to be the first thing people see, or the thing that loads first, because it's all above the fold, so to speak, we're just going to use appear. We'll use scroll animation and scroll speed here in a little bit. So up here, you click on this. Well, what do we want to happen? Well, on trigger, the trigger is appear, but we can also change this. This allows us to change those other types as well that you saw over there on that menu. And then preset, they have some different presets that you can then customize. So let's say slide in top. Now, if you want to see what that looks like, where it's going to place it and come from, we click on enter where it says effect. And now you can see it's kind of up here off the view, which is really cool. And you can adjust these settings right here. So for instance, if I take the opacity all the way to 1, we won't see it because it's still outside. But then we could adjust this to maybe say 100 or -50, and we could see it. And then we could use the keyboard up or down arrow key to move it up and out of view like that. So right here would be fine. And then we could click on transition, and this gives you different types. There's two different types of animation easing, so to speak. We're going to choose ease, kind of pull this one here, and this basically is the animation timeline. So it starts slow, then gets fast, or it starts fast, then gets slow, and then ends fast, essentially. And you can adjust all these parameters at will. So I might want to change this time to 1 with no delay. So now if I hit play, see how it just falls into place? We can click reload. There we go. Now let's apply that same concept to this area. So we have our card container called stack. We want to make sure that overflow is visible, hidden right here, which is what it is by default. But it's important to note that for this effect to work. I'm going to do the same thing except for these cards. So I'm going to click effect up here. We're going to do slide in top, and maybe we'll do slide in bottom. And then we click effect. I want to take the opacity at 100%. We're going to take the Y and push that all the way down to like pretty far off, maybe like 300, 304. Click on spring, change that to ease, and this would be 1 second with a 0.2 second delay, like that. So it kind of starts a little bit after the the nav bar kind of comes in. So let's see what this looks like. Yeah, it's because we have kind of the boring easing, I think. So let's do this. Let's try that. Okay, so now it comes in a little bit more snappy. Okay, so now what we could do is right-click, copy this, select these two, right-click, paste. Now here's the problem. They're not going to be down far enough. They are, actually. I thought maybe I didn't push it down far enough, but nonetheless I did. So we click on it. We do want to add a delay offset between them. So we're going to do 0.4 for this one, and then the third one, we'll do a 0.6. Honestly, I would probably want to adjust that to probably just a point, what do you call? This is going to be 0.3, and this is going to be 0.4. I want it to come in a little bit faster. Oops, 0.4. There we go. Hit play. All right, that looks pretty cool. All right, so now what we can do, same thing. We're going to take the artificial intelligence, the stack. Let's make sure it's hidden, and it is. We're going to take the actual type itself, add in an effect of, this is going to be up here as well. This will be slide in. We'll do top, the effect. Let's get this up and out of the way like -200. And again, let's just change this easing. 1 second. This is going to be like 0.8. Now let's do 0.7 on that one. All right, hit play. Now it looks like crap. That's because I forgot the easing. That easing really does make a difference in the animation. Makes it nice and snappy. All right. Maybe we'll do 0.5. We'll try that out. Hit play. Yeah. This should be from a different adjustment. So if I go to effect, we're going to make this like 200. We're going to come up from the bottom. And in that case, we also have to reduce the easing to like say, the delay rather, to like maybe 0.2. There, I like that better. So as you can see, those fine adjustments I was making, you have to go back and forth, but finally you'll find something that kind of just jives right and flows right. And it's not perfect now, but I could spend a lot more time, but I just, I don't want to take everybody's time, doing this stuff. So now what we could do is just take this one, right click, copy it, come down here. We can paste that in as well under effects, adjust for a slightly longer delay by 0.3. Hit play. Nice. All right. So reload. Let's go back. Let's hit publish. Now when you hit publish, guess how fast it's ready to view on an actual website. Notice one issue. You see how we see just the top of it? That's because we didn't push it down far enough because we're on such a wide resolution right here. So if I take this in, you'll see how it responds. Yeah, very cool. So now let's do the extra fun part, which is that crazy background that I'm going to show you how to make within Unicorn Studio. So what I did is I went into Midjourney, and what I did is I generated all these different ideas right here, starting here. And I thought it'd be cool to have like a crazy looking glossy alien on a yellow background. And so that's what my first prompt to Midjourney was. And by the way, Midjourney is a AI image generation. It's like the best, basically the first one, almost the first one. And it gives you really cool ideas based on text prompts right here. So I decided, it doesn't make sense to have a black alien there because we want text on top of it. So we have to have low contrast. So how about a yellow alien? It decided to make the eyes black. That's fine. And I was experimenting with some different options here, and I finally ended up on this one. So then what I did is I went into Photoshop, and I outlined just the head and created a selection out of it. And that allowed me to cut it out onto a background that is transparent. And this is an asset that I saved. And then we go to Unicorn Studio. So if I go there, hit enter, and then click login. So I'm going to click on new project. And the first thing I'm going to do is get the background color that we want. So if I go back here to frame, here, there it is. Got it right there. I'm going to specify in the background here. Oh, what is happening? Oh, there we go. Sorry, wasn't selected. All right, so now I can paste that right there. Okay, so that's our background. Next up, we're going to import the image that goes onto the background. And the way we do that is right here under image. I've already uploaded it, but we just click upload and then upload your asset. We click on that. And we're going to bind this thing. There's newly added anchors here. So anchor, I'm going to do bottom right. Or make it like bigger, like this. Notice width, we're going to do relative and relative. All right. Kind of like that. Now we're also going to add right here a pattern. So pattern, and we could change the pattern to dots, make them black. And we can also change, go back to pattern, the weight of, or how thick they are. I want them kind of small. I also want it to be underneath the image, so I'm going to grab and drag it underneath that image right there. So with the pattern still selected, you know, we can also adjust scale. So we want more of them or less, whatever. We'll leave it right there. All right, and then we can add effects. Like right now, it's not doing anything, right? Like it's not, there's no movement and there's nothing happening. So that's up to us. So we could take what's called, where is that at? The F. I know it's here somewhere. It's like one of the most used ones, and I cannot find it. F, B, M. Are you that ridiculous that you cannot find the FBM? I mean, I know it's like, it has to be here somewhere. Ah, see? I knew it was. There we go. So if I click play, you can see all this crazy crap happening. Isn't that cool? Yes, it is. That's shaders, by the way. What we'll do is adjust this scale, maybe change the magnitude. We don't want it to go so crazy. So that's already cool as well. You can see where it says gain. Look at that. So you can really create some pretty crazy effects. And you can add even more to this as well. Actually, I kind of like that. The speed, we can increase the speed like crazy or slower. I love that. Now let's add one more thing. We'll do like a mouse, maybe ripple or trail. Oh. It kind of feels slow though, doesn't it? We could change the radius and take that down. That kind of, I don't really like that much. It's just kind of fun to play with these. Maybe take the strength way down. Honestly, it's kind of maybe not cool to have, like there's already craziness happening. Let's delete that. And maybe instead, mouse tracking. We can turn mouse tracking on. Oh, now it looks like it's looking at you. Look at that. 3D axis tilt. Oh. It looks like there's like frosted glass or something. I'm keeping that. So now what we do is hit export and go to embed. This is so freaking cool. And then we can go over to, where's it at? Embed, Framer, right there. We copy that little blip right there, that URL, and we go back to Framer. Now, with our top container select, for desktop, we're just gonna paste in that external component. I'm gonna put it all the way up here. And then we're going to change it to absolute. After that, we're going to adjust the width to 100%. And the height, we could change to viewport of 100 viewport height. Now, we're not done there yet because we need to put the project ID in, which means we need to go back to Unicorn Studio. The project ID is right here. All right. Then we can go back into Unicorn Studio, Framer rather, and then paste that in. Now we hit play. Oh no, it's on top. So that's where the z-index property comes. We're going to put 0, and that won't be enough. Oh, yes, it will. Who am I kidding? And check that out. Now, here's the thing. When you get to mobile, it starts to squish it, which I could probably adjust. It still looks cool, in my opinion. But you could hide it, that whole canvas element, if you wanted to. And so with that selected, another thing that we can do possibly to make it extra cool is we can add and change the effect right here where it says scroll speed, and we can adjust this to let's try 50%. So watch this. What happens is when we scroll down, it kind of follows us. See, it has a parallax effect. And so you can add the parallax effect as well onto this image or piece of type if you wanted to, or not. So isn't that freaking awesome? So we just built a really cool layout, not the entire thing, from scratch within probably an hour or something. So there's a lot to learn, obviously, but once you start building more layouts, it becomes way easier and it becomes second nature. So that's where my From Figma to Framer course comes in. Definitely check that out at DesignCourse.com. And yeah, I will see you all very soon. Goodbye.